The way the story has always been told to me, and Archie Monroe confirmed it, that was in 1943 when all of the men were off serving at war, the women decided to vote it dry. And he said he got a local paper about the initiative to go dry, and the comment said, if you need a ride to the polls, be sure and call this number. And Archie looked at the number and got a chuckle out of it because it was his mother's phone number.
In 1942, the number of signatures that was required in order to get a petition, the number of signatures that's required on a petition to get a local option, that means whether to turn the county wet or dry, that was lowered to 15% in 1942. And that made it possible for many counties to go ahead and hold elections.
Being a dry county, essentially, in layman's terms, means you cannot buy or serve alcohol to the general public. Now, there is a few ways around that with private clubs and private liquor license, but you cannot go into a restaurant and have a drink, the general public. You can go to the country club where you're a paid membership, but anywhere else you must drive out of town in order to obtain alcohol.
But Arkansas changed the law in the 1990s, and they raised the requirement to 38%. In other words, you can't even hold an election until you have a petition with this very large segment of voters. And in fact, the intent of the law, when it was approved in the 1990s, was basically to shut down local option elections. One thing to remember is that Arkansas is almost unique in the United States in having this patchwork of wet and dry counties or even municipalities.
The Vote for Growth Committee is a ballot question committee that was formed in September of 2013 in order to obtain enough signatures to put alcohol sales on the ballot in November of 2014.
I understand the impulse to be concerned about drinking coming to Magnolia, especially if you're not a drinker yourself. I can understand how you might not want other people to drink, but I don't think it's fair or even possible to legislate morality.
And I can tell you one thing for sure, when you add a lot of alcohol to a situation, things never get better. Things always get worse. I've seen a lot of people who are normally, very mild and pacifist type people. You give them enough alcohol, they get bold, and then they start wanting to fight. In it, just a number of situations you can do that.
I know that we do not attract good candidates and often lose good colleagues because they aren't willing to come to SAU, or because when they get here, SAU doesn't offer much in the way of entertainment.
Paul said in Romans that we should look at this issue as an example. He refrained from drinking because of the example it set upon others.
Everybody's going to have their own opinion, and we're not trying to make this a moral issue or anything. We just think that because of the money that we're losing in Columbia County, it is strictly an economic issue that must be addressed.
I'm Meredith Lampkin, and I own Lampkin's Liquor. Been doing it for the last 10 years, so don't know anything else different. A lot of people don't realize I do it because I pay taxes every single month, and I know they're wanting it for the economic growth. They think that liquor sales are going to increase profits, and I can tell you that it doesn't.
I've identified at least 75 different scriptures from the Bible, and almost all of them speak of the demise of drinking. In Genesis 19, we see Lot and his debauchery with his own daughters. All are resulting from drunkenness. Leviticus chapter 10, Deuteronomy chapter 21, Esther 1 verses 5 through 12 tells us that when you drink, you will wreck your home. Judges chapter 13, Proverbs 21:7, Proverbs 23 verse 21, drinking leads to poverty.
We are losing lots of money to neighboring counties and parishes just on alcohol sales alone. If you do the statistics and look back, it's estimated that we are losing about $429,000 in tax revenue alone. Now, that don't sound like a lot of money, but that is strictly tax revenue and tax revenue alone. It's also estimated that if Columbia County was to go wet, it would increase sales in the county to about $10.1 million.
I've run some of those numbers. Like I said, I researched it in depth. Some of the numbers they're throwing out there, I don't know that they're that realistic. I want to say I figured it would have to be somewhere around $1,400 a year every household would have to spend on alcohol to put out the $420,000 in revenue, which I don't see as being very realistic in our county.
It's all a leakage study. Whenever you leave Columbia County to go buy alcohol, you more than likely are going to stop and eat at another restaurant. You may stop and fill up and get gas. You may go to the movies, bowling, etc. All of that money is leaving Columbia County. We need that money to stay here.
We make plans to stock up, essentially, to buy alcohol in other locations when we travel. So that's money that hypothetically we would be spending right here in Columbia County if we had the option.
Yes, I would like to see Columbia County grow as well as everywhere else in this area. You know, growth is good for everybody. But on the other hand, I just spent 7 months trying to get here, spent a lot of money, and we just opened up our new store in October, and now they're trying to get it on the ballot to go wet. So yeah, I don't want to have to close my doors down and go home and, you know, file bankruptcy, but, you know, there's nothing I can do about it if it does go wet.
So we know there are people who are not drinkers who have signed our petition and are interested in the wet-dry issue on the ballot, not because socially it provides something for them, but because they recognize this is a movement to help Magnolia grow.
It's like a lot of things. It's fine as long as it's not in my neighborhood. Well, hey, if you're for it, then you've got to be willing to say, am I willing for it to be next to me? Because it's going to be next to somebody.
I don't want to see this in Magnolia because this is the kind of business that you don't want in a good town, okay? And Magnolia, I think, is a great, like, that's where my kid goes to school at. That's where I plan on sending him to school, you know, even though I have an opportunity to send him anywhere around here pretty much. But I think Magnolia is a nicer town than most of the towns around here. And I think one of the reasons is because they've kept it clean.
The strongest, most persuasive point for me is that I would rather have a liquor store located near my house than to have empty businesses located near my house.
The guy who drinks a 6-pack a week is not going to buy enough for that liquor store's door to stay open. It's going to take the serious drinkers to keep liquor stores open.
My family is here, and we're here for the long haul. I want this to be a place where my kids can come back and maybe raise their own families. So if this place is going to be able to provide for my family, it needs to be able also to change and evolve with the times.
Well, being a dry county hasn't kept alcohol from our county, and I agree with that. It hasn't. But just because it hasn't doesn't mean that reversing that role or that image isn't going to give the perception that it's okay. By saying we're going to remain dry, then we're saying that this is an issue that's important to us, and it is something that's detrimental to our society, and we're going to try to refrain from it.
We were in business down there, so I mean I can't really say that Columbia County is keeping my business. I mean, because whenever we were in Odie and Stevens went wet, we were still in business. So I can't say in fully. I would probably say 75% of my business is Columbia County.
After all is said and done, you wanna do it some what? What? Hit the low down, 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 down. If you do it once more, you wanna do it twice. Some says naughty. but oh so nice.